Today is February 7th, and the readings all touch on exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion, and the pressure to carry things that we were never meant to carry. We're looking at where overwhelm actually comes from, who gets blamed for it, and what happens when responsibility is misplaced. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Candy. I'm a hypnotherapist who's deconstructing from evangelical Christianity, and I know how mindset shapes our behavior. So in this series, I'm going to share my daily reflections from 3 different devotionals. The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, and that one's a little more spiritual, non-religious. Also, Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a very modern Christian approach. And My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers, which is a very classic Christian angle. My goal is to help you see how each one of these devotionals or these day books might shape your mindset a little differently. And if you're into that kind of reflection, please like and follow for more. Let's get started. Today is February 7th, and in the Book of Awakening, we're talking about what you do when you're overwhelmed. Because some of us were programmed to carry the pain for others, as if that's even possible. So when someone else might be feeling anxiety, you may take on that anxiety yourself in order to relieve their anxiety. That's the attempt to manage their emotions so that they are now more comfortable, but you are less comfortable. And not just uncomfortable, overwhelmed a lot of times, because many of us were taught to just manage the emotions of everybody else in the room while neglecting our own. And I am one of those people. I was kind of programmed the way, and it wasn't intentional. My parents weren't trying to intentionally do it, but they did not have their emotions regulated. And so in order to find a safe space, I helped to regulate. I would pay attention to the energy in the room and try to adapt to it, try to make sure it was as comfortable as possible for them, behaving in a way to make sure they didn't upset people. And when I did upset people, the guilt and shame for that was hard, because it was never my intent to upset people, because it was very hard for me to have them be upset. There was rejections involved, and I then had unregulated emotions because I was so busy regulating everybody else's. I grew up and had unregulated emotions and passed that on to my children. So I began to deconstruct, and I began to work through this inner programming, and I'm a very different person than I was. And my children are reaping the benefits, especially the ones that live in the home, but even those who have moved out, who, are still around a lot. There's a different relationship than we ever would have had I not learned how to regulate my own emotions. It helps them. So when you help you become aware of this stuff and begin to heal, it does have a ripple effect for sure. And our work, if we've been programmed that way, is to learn how to carry what's just ours alone, but also love the other person and hold space for them to carry. Love them, be with them, comfort in ways that you can without picking up their pain. And sometimes it's not even really, you don't even know if that's their pain. I remember my son, I used to homeschool him, and then we put him in public school, and I was really anxious for him when he was going to middle school. So anxious. I would feel the anxiety that I perceived he was feeling, and he was feeling some, and he was working through it, but I would carry it with me throughout the day. And I came to a point, I was like, I have to cut the apron strings here. He's got to carry what he has to carry. I cannot carry that all day long. And I eventually had a mental picture, and I did that, and it was better for me and for him. So this is good advice today. In Jesus Calling, the message is that you can't do it all, and you shouldn't be ashamed to admit that. I think that's a fair statement, fair thing to believe. That you should remain attentive to Jesus and let him guide you step by step. So instead of beating yourself up, trust that Jesus is leading you step by step. Sometimes this could easily keep you from paying attention to making sure the direction you're going is really where you want to go. Are you hurting yourself or others in this process? And just, I'm following Jesus and that's all that matters? Or are you thinking about how it ripples out? That's what I would add to that. She also goes on to say this will be hard to do, to remain attentive to Jesus, which I'm not entirely sure what remaining attentive to him, just listening, maybe, with your inner self. I don't know. That it will be hard because you're going to go against the devil, the world, and your flesh. And, I always thought of the flesh as anything that I desire, my physical body might desire. That's where shame comes in with the physical body. The devil, the being always out to get you, and the world, anything that is not Christian, is trying to press on you to be different than that. And and I don't think I think the message is actually out in the world to try to do it all. I do think that's a message. I think that comes from the world. I think it comes from, even in religion and Christianity, it's taught like you should be striving to do all the things as a mother, as a wife. You should strive to stay on top of everything at all times, as a husband, as a father, or just a person in general, to be the best version of you that you can be at all time. Hustle culture teaches this. It doesn't just come from Christianity. To say you shouldn't be ashamed that you can't do it all is not necessarily a message I got, even though once in a while you would, right? And that would be like, well, this is where you lean on Jesus, but then you lean on Jesus and then you're supposed to be able to do it all, right? You're supposed to be able to do all the things instead of narrow it down to what you actually can do. Because others have expectations of you and they have their view of Jesus that they want you to fulfill, of what it means to be a good woman, a good wife, a good mother, a good husband, a good father, a good son or daughter, or whatever the title or label is. And then it's the world that's making it hard for you. It's making it hard for you to trust that Jesus is guiding you, I guess. So you'll keep striving. Yeah, you kind of keep striving in Christianity. So is that the devil? But then you're shamed if you don't keep striving to be better, right? To do better, to be at church more, to read your Bible more, to think about Jesus more, spend more time with God in prayer. So this one's just really kind of confusing to me. I think that if your tiredness is mostly from battling those three, that's what she basically says, that that's where your exhaustion comes from. There's something wrong with this message, something that would cause a mindset. I hate to say wrong, because it's just, I really don't think there's even a right and a wrong. There is mindsets that lead to terrible consequences, terrible outcomes. And when you constantly think you're battling the world, the flesh, and the devil, but you have to keep your mind attentive to Jesus, and you don't even know exactly what Jesus is saying. It's based on your version of Jesus that's been handed to you or that you've come up with. It's just, I don't know, it creates you're not going to listen to sound reasoning from people. You're going to, someone might come and say, you can't do it all. And that would be comforting. And then that you would trust that God is guiding you. I'm trying to think through this right on the spot. And I don't know. I don't like something about this. Obviously, the part where it's you be attentive to Jesus and let him guide you step by step. I get that in Christianity, and I get how that can be comforting, but it can also just make you blind and deaf to good, sound advice where you need to cut. And sometimes it might be that you don't go to church. Sometimes it might be that you walk away from those belief systems. But a lot of times people won't because they think that's not following Jesus, when in my opinion, it is my love for Jesus that led me out of Christianity. That is how I walked away, is I just followed Jesus out. Now, I don't worship Jesus anymore, but I do think he was a great person in history to follow the example of. So that's my 2 cents on that reading today. And one last thing about the Jesus calling reading. Why do we praise then people who do look like they're holding it all together, who are doing it all? We praise that. We praise women who look like they're all put together, their house is in order, their children are, well behaved, and everything's going smoothly. We praise that. If we can't do it, then why are we praising it? So, because we must be being misled somewhere. Like, it's not true. They're really not holding it together, but they appear so. Anyways, that's my thought on that. Finally, in my utmost for his highest, the message is like my low feelings, or when we feel disappointed by what God is doing, that's on us. It's not on him. He doesn't get any of the blame. We do. It's our fault because we had expectations that were unrealistic, I guess, and that we should seek. What the problem is, we seek answers to our prayers, we seek signs, we seek wonders instead of seeking God's face. We seek for him to show us he's God instead of just seeking who he is, I guess. And we must first learn to obey without question, and then we'll see more clearly. And this is ridiculous reasoning. If God is so loving and wants to save us all, he needs to make it clearer who he is and what he's about. So that's kind of sums up, what to do with those low feelings. In the first one, it's maybe you're carrying things that don't belong to you. Kind of go inward and pay attention. That's in the book of Awakening. In Jesus Calling, it's probably your flesh, the devil, the world attacking you, and you need to just focus more on Jesus. It's always focus more on Jesus. And then in my utmost, it's really about like, it's all your fault. Anything negative is your fault. God's perfect. So just obey. Just obey. And I remember that message and I'm never going back to it. It's garbage. So anyways, that is my opinion on those 3 books. Take what you will from them and have a good day. Remember, you get to decide what you devote your thinking to today. You might not be able to control every thought that comes in, but you can definitely decide what you entertain. And whether it comes from something I've said today or something completely different, choose wisely and set an intention that truly benefits you and those around you. And if you found any value here today, don't forget to like and follow. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and let's keep our minds on what helps us love ourselves and each other a little bit better every day.